Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace, love, and blessings of Allah be with you. Welcome. You are watching Ramadan Transformation, day number 19. You are perfect, just the way you are. You're perfect, just the way you are. This is a spiritual truth. It is something that I resisted a lot the first time I heard it. And I think there's a couple of reasons why we resist this truth. And the first reason why I had a big, strong, when somebody, you hear in personal development, yeah, you're great, you're awesome. And I thought when people were saying you're great just the way you are, I thought they were saying I thought they were saying, I don't know, everything about you is perfect already. And it is, but I just couldn't get my head around it. And the number one reason why we resist this understanding that you're already perfect, that there's nowhere to get to, that there's nothing more you have to do to be your highest and best self, it's because you already are your highest and best self. You've just been kidding yourself out of it. And the number one reason we resist this, well, there's two reasons. But the first reason is the image we have of our perfect selves. So when somebody would tell me you're perfect just the way you are, I would be like, no, you don't know me. Oh gosh, no. If I was perfect, then I would have rippling six-pack abdominals. If I was perfect, then I would speak perfect French and Spanish and Arabic and Urdu and Punjabi and, and Catalan, of course, Catalan. How could I forget Catalan? If I was perfect, then I would have the perfect body. If I was perfect, then I would have memorized all of the Quran. I mean, if I was perfect, obviously I would have memorized all the Quran already, and I haven't, so I'm not perfect. If I was perfect, I would have. And all of a sudden, there's this image in our minds of this perfect version of ourselves, the version of yourself that if you spent hundreds or thousands of hours alone working on each of these areas, then maybe you would reach that level of mastery. If I was perfect, I'd be able to play the guitar like Guns N' Roses, right? If I was perfect, then I'd be able to, recite the Quran more beautifully than Imam Shatri, hafidhahu Allah. If I was perfect, so all of these, if I was perfect, then I'd be an alim, I'd be the most knowledgeable Muslim in the world, right? If I was perfect. Well, this is exactly what I mean by the image of our perfect selves. Now, you know what that image is? That imaginary image in the future of our perfect selves? You know what that is? It's a three-letter word. We've talked about it a lot. Ego. That image of the perfect you is your ego. And the number one reason why you're resisting owning the fact that Allah already made you beautiful and already made you perfect just the way you are is this ego image you have of the perfect version of yourself. That version, you know what that is? It's a fantasy. It doesn't even exist. It's something you made up. And you made it up, held up as the standard of what being perfect means. And then anything below that isn't perfect. And therefore you get this, it's an excuse to beat yourself up every single day because you don't match up to this perfect image of yourself that doesn't even really exist. Now, your criteria for the perfect you is this imaginary thing that you've created, just like mine. Oh, by the way, the perfect me would have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and probably 3 other martial arts and would do Tai Chi every morning for like half an hour, right? Perfect Mamoon. But you know what? That's my imaginary ego criteria for perfect. You know what Allah's criteria for perfect is? This. You, as you are right now. You couldn't be not enough any more than a tree could be the wrong color. The way you are right now in this moment is exactly the way Allah wants you to be. You know why? Because if Allah wanted you to be any other way, that's the way you would be right now. But you're not. You're the way you are. Well, alhamdulillah for that. The way you are right now is exactly the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be. So another resistance comes up when we start, and this is like a religious resistance, which is like, no, we can't be perfect. If we were perfect, if I was perfect, then that means I wouldn't sin. So the second resistance comes up, but I sin and I make mistakes and I missed prayer this morning and we're meant to pray 5 times a day and I missed one. And, I keep forgetting to make some time to study the Quran and memorize the Quran. So the second big resistance is, but I sin and I make mistakes. Do you think the perfect version of you wouldn't sin? Do you think the perfect version of you wouldn't make mistakes? There is a hadith Qudsi that if mankind was to reach a point where they didn't sin, if mankind was to not sin, Allah would wipe them off the face of the earth and replace them with people who sin and then turn to him and ask for forgiveness. You're meant to sin. The question is, do you turn back to Allah? And if you're like, yeah, but I haven't been turning back to Allah and that's my sin, then stop. You're in a chatter. Just stop for a moment. All you need to do is turn back to Allah. And that has probably already happened. And if it hasn't happened, it can happen right now in this moment just by saying, Astaghfirullah. I ask Allah for forgiveness. And you know, Allah forgives you to the extent that you forgive yourself. And if you've got a mufti inside your mind beating yourself up, the reason that mufti exists is because it is based, this inner mufti that's just judging you and criticizing you and being harsh towards you, this imaginary, that's another part of your ego. And it is also imaginary. And it's not Allah. It thinks it's Allah. It thinks it's a mufti. It's not a mufti either. It's just your inner talk. Right? But you can take the legs out from under it when you come to the spiritual realization that actually you already are perfect, just the way you are, with all of your sin, with all of your mistakes, with all of your imperfections, with all of the reasons you've made up to beat yourself up that you can let go of now. Allah wants you to be exactly the way you are right now in this moment. The starting point for all change is to realize that you don't really need it, because you already are everything you've been trying to become. May the peace, love, and blessings of Allah be with you.